Time to preview the second preliminary final between the Penrith Panthers and the Cronulla Sharks. This has been an ugly matchup for the Sharks of recent times. We'll touch on that throughout the course of the preview. Penrith looking for a fifth consecutive grand final appearance and hoping for a fourth consecutive flag. And if you look at the four prelims they've won in recent years, they've done it in dominant fashion, scoring 100 points. They've only conceded 38. Only twice have they conceded double figures in a prelim and never more than 16 points. They've been dominant in this matchup in particular, and then they've carried that through into the grand final. Will they get there? But will the Sharks, who have sort of moulded a lot of what they do around Penrith, be able to take down the master and give themselves a shot at the title? We'll jump into our finals focus. Stat that matters for Penrith: defence, defence and defence. The average prelim score, as we mentioned off the top, is 25-9, so they just don't concede scores, particularly in finals. They're up to 10 straight finals victories. They've been the number one defensive team in the competition this year in terms of points conceded, minimising errors, completions, and all of the key stats that they really do need to be firing on. And this Sharks team can score pretty quickly. We've seen them put runs on throughout the course of the season, so it is going to be important that Penrith find one more strong defensive effort to get themselves into a grand final. Key player for Penrith, it's an easy one at this time of year, Nathan Cleary. He almost single-handedly won them a grand final last year against Brisbane, dragging them back from the brink of defeat. He's been excellent again this year. In the face of some injury niggles, the extra week off that they gained out of winning the qualifying final will certainly help him. He's the ultimate big game player, which is how you define the best players in the competition. His accuracy with his kicking and just his ability to marshal his troops has been absolutely pivotal in his side's success, and it might be the soft and easy option, but it's clearly the right one. Nathan Cleary, the key player for the Panthers. The key stat for the Sharks is their ability to go with that defensive five for Penrith and actually stand toe-to-toe for as long as they possibly can. They've been just about the closest thing we've seen to them in terms of how they set up and some of the numbers around them. So can the likes of Kennedy and his cohorts find a way to stand up for the full 80 minutes and maybe poke their noses in front? You sense this could be relatively low scoring, which will keep them in the game for a long time, and they are capable of bursts, so can they go with them long enough? Well, we did say it was Nathan Cleary at Penrith. It's the easy option at the Sharks as well with Nicho Hynes. Cooper Cronk mentioned before they played the Storm in the qualifying final that he needs to walk in like he owns the joint, and I think that remains true this time around. They've been getting the job done largely through some other aspects within their team, but he is their best player on paper. He's actually been absent for some key games this year, and there is the elephant in the room, so to speak, which has been his finals record. And if he pilots his team into another grand final, then all of that will be forgiven, especially if they can bring down the Kings in the Penrith Panthers. So Nicho Hynes probably has to be the best player on the ground. Well, going back to 1967, the head-to-head record's pretty even between these two sides. They've met exactly 100 times, Cronulla with 52 wins, Penrith 45, and 3 draws over that run. They've only met in the finals once, back in 2018. The Sharks won a thriller on that occasion. But it's the recent history that's particularly concerning for the Sharks. They haven't scored against Penrith this year, and if you go back to the middle of last year, Penrith have actually rattled off 82 consecutive points against them. So this year, 42-0 and 28-0, and they scored the last 12 against them the season before, coming from 8-10 down to beat them 20-10. So it's a fair old task in front of the Sharks to come back and beat a side in the prelim that scored, the best part of 100 points in a row against them over the last 200 minutes of football. It's the most dominant head-to-head record in that period of time for any one side over another. So bit of a task for the Sharks to turn that around in the second biggest game of the year. Well, last time they met, 42-0, so it got a little bit worse. It was 28-0 earlier in the season from the 2 meetings that they've had this year. So Sharks have been top 4 all year, so they're a better side than that reads. But Penrith, when they've been in a particularly ruthless frame of mind, have had everybody covered in the competition. So if the Sharks can land a blow early, potentially get on the scoreboard, get some confidence, that's probably the key to them. But last time they met and the recent history doesn't make for very kind viewing. Final thoughts on this game. We have mentioned the ugly records this year. I don't think it will be that. You feel that the Sharks will come in the fired up frame of mind that's necessary. They'll push Penrith for as long as they can, but the question of whether you can take the Panthers the distance in a final is not a question that's been answered particularly strongly by really anyone in recent times, so you can't really bet against them getting through to a grand final. I think it'll be Penrith and the Storm. They've been the two best sides over the course of the season, and if you look more historically, the Panthers the best team of the last 3 years, the Storm probably the best team of the last 20, and it looks like they'll meet again in a grand final. From our point of view, to preview that, take a look at all of the conversations around best players on the ground and injuries and player signings and movements, head to the NRL Finals Hub at zerotackle.com.